Hey guys, welcome back to Average Home Theater. This is Nelson, and I'm joined by the esteemed Dominic. How's it going, man?
It's good to be back in the average home theater. It's nice, it's cozy. I'm glad I'm back.
Well, I appreciate that. Dominic just came in from about what, a 4 hour drive, a
About a
little
4 hour
traffic,
drive.
you know.
Hmm.
So he's nice and tired, but he's a soldier, and we're gonna get through this.
Had to make my appearance on the channel.
Yeah, yeah. So since it's 4th of July, and if you noticed on a lot of YouTube channels and podcasts, everyone is talking about Jaws, right? Perfect 4th of July movie, am I right?
Absolutely. It goes with it, Americana, classic film.
Takes place during 4th of July.
Hmm.
And look, here's the thing about Jaws. It's awesome. Okay. There's no doubt about that. But there are some people who don't like it. And while I don't know why, because I was talking to producer Nick yesterday,
Hmm.
and because I told him you were coming and we were doing this, the more I watch this, the more I like it.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily grow up watching it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know why. I don't know if my parents just didn't like it or whatever, but it wasn't like something I watched growing up, like say RoboCop, okay?
Right.
But as an adult, I've watched it several times, and I've gotten, the last like 2 or 3 years, I watch it every 4th of July, but I enjoy it more every time I watch it now.
It's one of those movies that you kind of pick up on different things the more you watch it. And it really is the first blockbuster, right? So 1975, I
Yep,
believe so.
75.
Right.
It was
So,
definitely the first creature feature.
right.
There had been monster movies,
Hmm.
but creature features, this kind of paved the way for that. Where you
I can
get
see
like
that.
your
Yeah.
your killer alligator movies and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, this was like the first of its kind, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure this is what started all of that because
Oh yeah.
all of a sudden rip-offs started happening and
Oh,
Piranha
for
and all that. Yeah,
years. Yes. And I'm a title guy, right? Jaws is an awesome title.
yes, it is. It
It's
is a
like
great
it's
title.
very simple. It's very clever too because it's not called Shark or Shark Attack or Creature of the Deep. It's just Jaws because it has massive jaws, obviously, and I just love the title. Kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's a great title.
Yeah, it really, and I have to agree on this one. Like,
Hmm.
really, Jaws is a great title.
Right.
You don't really think about it because it's kind of like it's like pop culture. You just know Jaws relates to this shark movie, this infamous shark movie. But
Hmm.
when you sit down and really think about it, that is a clever name. That's pretty cool.
It is
Now, it's
cool.
based off of a novel. I don't know if the novel's called Jaws or not. We have to figure that out.
So yes, there is a novel, you're right. And that was and looking at some of the behind the scenes, the novel wasn't that popular, but they discovered it, and then after the movie, it was flying off the shelf. So the author was very appreciative of that. It got more popular after the movie.
I wonder how faithful it is, because you
Yeah,
know Spielberg has a tendency to not be very faithful to source material, i.e. Jurassic Park. Even though
right.
the movie's brilliant,
Movie's great, but
it's
and
not the same.
right, and one of the big things with Jurassic Park is in the movie, um, the creator of the island is like a Walt Disney character,
Hmm.
and in the book he's very dark. So yeah, he
Yeah, he
kind of
was like really a jerk.
yeah,
Yeah,
John
yeah.
Hammond, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and but yeah, Jaws. What's cool about Jaws too is it's really like I was saying a little bit earlier. It's credited as kind of being the first blockbuster, in addition to a creature feature. Because think about it, before this, you had what? You had Planet of the Apes, which was kind of like a modest hit,
Yeah, that
and
was like
yeah, the '60s,
1964 or something.
right? And you had like Godfather, and that was really it, like as far as big stuff,
Hmm.
So this was really kind of the first blockbuster where people would line up around the block to see it. Showings were sold out and all of that. Um,
Yeah, you're right, because Star Wars didn't come out till 2 years after this.
Star Wars
So
was a little bit after it, so um, and so starting it out, kind of going into it, what I like about it is I like creature features like this, but I like how they build up the town first. They don't
mhm.
just dive right into the monster, right? It's hidden and there's sightings, right? And it's kind of they build to it.
Well, what I like about it is and what makes it so clever, it's politics.
Hmm.
It's they discovered the body of the girl who went swimming and all that good stuff and gets attacked and eaten or whatever.
Right.
But the politicians still are they're trying to pretend like it didn't happen because it's
Yes.
about money. Their main
Uh-huh.
revenue is money. And look, I work at an engineering firm, and we are the engineers for actually multiple municipalities.
Okay.
And I can tell you, that might be why I appreciate this movie more now because I've been in this business for 7 years,
Right.
dealing with politicians and whatnot. Let me tell you, man, the decisions that are made, even in small towns,
Because it is a small town.
it's
Yeah.
like you just, wow. And, you know, some of that stuff kind of has to happen. They
Uh-huh.
have to make difficult decisions. And think about it, that is their lifeline, right?
Right.
Tourism during the summertime is their lifeline. Without tourists, the
Uh-huh.
town is gonna die.
Right.
So they at first they're trying to balance, okay, it's a shark attack, it doesn't happen very often, and hopefully it's just a one-time deal, and they try to just let's just make this go away so we can continue doing our thing. And you kind of it's you understand their point of view, but at the
Right.
same time, someone just got eaten by a shark. So it's one of those things where who wants to make that call
You know,
to
I
close the beach?
it's ironically bringing it close to home, it's like the whole COVID thing, right?
Absolutely, it's the
It's like
same thing.
the longer we close the economy down, was that worse than, potential, getting
I'm
sick
sure
and
glad I
deaths,
didn't have to make those decisions.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
so yeah, that's what I think that's another reason. That's one of the main reasons why I enjoy it more as I get older because I
Hmm.
understand more of what's going on, other than just a shark eating
That's
people.
what I'm saying. There's more to it. There's more to it. There's the political stuff going on because is it uh is it the mayor? He doesn't want to close
The
the city
mayor
down.
and the city council,
The mayor and
none
the
of
city
them want
council.
to.
But Brody, and is he chief of police, right?
Yes, he's chief of police
The
with Amity, and
Right. And he wants to do the
yeah, he
right
worked
thing.
he worked for New York PD. You get
Right.
that? So he was the real police,
Uh-huh.
and then now he's kind of like, trying to set himself up for retirement in this nice beach community.
Right. But he still has that.
But he's
Yeah.
used to, oh, if it goes down, you got to shut it down.
Uh-huh.
Public safety is number one, and he goes over here, and these people are like, hey, 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 ho, 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 ho.
Yeah.
You shut down the beach.
Right.
There's no dollars. We
At the
can't
biggest time of the
function,
year.
right? So it's a very interesting little dynamic, and it makes it, a little bit. I can't even
No,
find
you
the
can see
words,
both
but
sides, but Brody, I believe, is the more altruistic side, right? Because he's
mhm.
thinking, you know, kids.
Well, he's the audience,
Yeah, yeah, he's
you
our kind
know.
of our way in. And man, this movie would not be the same without him.
Oh yeah, he's great.
I mean,
Absolutely, he's
I mean,
great.
he does so much with his face and like his reactions. It doesn't feel like he's
Hmm.
acting,
Hmm.
and that's another layer. If he wasn't in this movie and it was just someone phoning it in, it would not have lasted as long
Well,
as it has.
I will agree to a point.
Hmm.
I think that Roy Schneider is more replaceable than Robert Shaw as Quint.
Okay.
Quint is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, you take him out of the movie and
Right.
replace him with somebody else, to me, that's the biggest difference. You can replace
Okay.
Roy Scheider with probably somebody else, but I don't know if you can replace Shaw in his performance. I mean,
Y-
that is just
So you're
fantastic.
talking about the wise old sage that
I
you.
don't even know why. It's maybe a little crazy,
Yeah.
but it's one of those um, necessary to get the job done type of thing.
Uh-huh.
And his obviously he's seen things. He's got like PTSD
Right.
from the USS Indianapolis.
It's like you
All that
wouldn't
good.
want to be alone in a room with him, but if stuff went down,
Like,
you'd want to be
where's
by him.
Quint? Where's
Yeah,
Quint?
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, he is a little, you could tell he's got a couple of screws loose, but at the same time, he talks about, well, he was on the Indianapolis that went
right, which
down.
is that is a true
That is
story.
true,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Now, I did read up on it. I don't think as many sailors died from sharks as he says in his story.
yeah.
I think they may have Hollywooded
Oh,
that
probably
a little
embellished
bit
it.
to make it a little more intense, but
Right.
that scene is my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
I mean,
When they're on the boat
when they're on the
at
boat,
night.
it gets quiet and he has
Uh-huh.
his little little 3 or 4 minute story.
It's a great monologue. It's like
Oh, it's
standing
great.
sitting around the campfire
Yeah,
telling ghost
it's great.
stories or, and he's a, he might be, it's cool because you said, yeah, maybe they're embellishing the shark thing, but he might be embellishing it himself as a, you know what I
That
mean?
could be. He's exaggerating the
He's
story a little bit.
exaggerating the story himself so it fits. And like you said, some of your favorite scenes in there aren't even with the shark.
Oh no.
That's why it lasts so long. It's not just a B movie one time thing. And
And then of course Richard Dreyfuss. I mean,
he was great too.
young I mean, I love Richard Dreyfuss. I think he's great.
Hmm.
But to see him, that long ago, young and
Right.
full of energy and um, the little smart aleck college kid,
Right.
so
Yeah.
he was probably, I mean, supposed to be, I guess, 23, 24 years old,
Even though
something
he
like
looks a little
that.
older than that, but
Even though he looks
yeah.
a little older, but I think that's the age he's supposed to be. Maybe 25, 26 at the oldest, but
No, he did
he's a,
great.
he's a young academic.
And he's that type of like he's obviously kind of spoiled rich, but he's that gung ho. Like he doesn't have to be out there risking his life and wanting to cut the shark open and diving in there at night and all that. Like those three characters are so different. You have the straight cop, you have the little billionaire playboy kid that rather be out there discovering things on his own with endless amount of equipment, and then you
Scientist,
got
yeah.
the wise old
Cuckoo.
cuckoo sage type character. Like they're all three different, you know, that goes a long way because that adds to the
And
development of the story.
Robert Shaw had some city miles on him because he was only 48 years old when he played that part.
I
Yeah, I
did
know, I
not
know.
know
So
that.
look, so I watched it July 4th morning. Today is July 7th, but when we record this, you probably won't see this until for another week. But
Right.
um, I watched it the morning of the 4th
Hmm.
at like 7:30 in the morning. My wife and I woke up, we got our coffee at 6:30, whatever, ate a little breakfast. I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch Jaws.
That's awesome.
Do you want to come watch it? And she goes, I don't. She said, I like the movie, but I don't like it when that crazy old man is in there. So I looked it up. I was like, he's 48. I'm like,
You're-
babe, you're 48. My wife is 48. I'm like, he's your age. And she's the same age as the old man in
Gosh.
Jaws. So I thought that was, but it goes to show how he was, seen a lot.
Yeah, and he looks way older than, I
Right.
mean, he looks late 50s at the earliest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He looks like somebody pushing his 60s, not just 48 years old.
Yeah, totally. That's crazy. I did not know he
Hmm.
was.
He died 3 years later of a heart attack. He was only 51 when he passed.
Wow. Wow. It makes you wonder if his real life had any kind of similarities to his
I don't know.
character.
But I also did see where in I don't know if it's a horror movie thing or whatever, but I think it's horror movies, which some people consider this a horror movie. I really don't, but
Yeah,
it is in that ballpark.
right.
He's considered one of the greatest characters of all time or something like
I
that
can see that.
in
I
a
can
in
see
a
that.
horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah, because I see it as a blockbuster first before a horror movie, but there is that in there, just like the original Terminator. That
Hmm.
is in there, you know.
I mean, Quint's death is like, whew,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
great.
Yes.
And this rated PG movie,
That is insane to me. Like, because that was before.
1975, baby.
That's insane to me. I mean, can you imagine playing that like at a school because it's PG?
I know. Like that. I mean, my daughter is 13 and this movie would freak her out. She'd be like,
Yeah.
no,
I
there's
mean,
no.
it's closer to R than PG for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
PG-13 might even be pushing it with that death scene at the end.
well, I think usually whenever they determine ratings, it depends if it's who's doing the killing. I
Mm,
don't think it's so much the gore itself. I think it's more of like if it's a person killing a person.
right.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be closer to rated R, but I would think they may have to cut some of that a little bit. The
Yeah.
death scene, they may have to edit it just a little bit to make PG-13.
Right. Yeah. Because
Especially
I
when
can
he
see.
bites down on him and all the blood comes out his mouth.
Yeah. Because like, the movie, The Soul Surfer about the girl that got her
Yes,
arm
yeah.
bitten, and it's a true
True
story,
story, yeah.
and that's PG, and they had to be real careful. Like, you don't even you see the shark for like a half a second, and you don't even see the shark bite her. You just see the aftermath. So yeah, that's a long cry away from how it was then. Oh, and we didn't talk about this at the beginning. Very, very, very 70s. Like,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
the hair
The
And
hippies playing music on the beach
yes,
and
like
all
their
that stuff.
party, and
Yeah.
even the way the credits go through,
And John
very
Williams, of
70s.
course. Man, we can't get away
Okay,
from all this crap.
I know, I know.
John Williams,
John
man.
Williams, man, he's his score, iconic score, right? This one's up there.
Oh,
Like
oh,
that, they're
absolutely.
all up there, but I'm
Who
saying,
doesn't know? Duh, duh, duh. I mean, who doesn't know that?
and it's like so simplistic, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
simple, but it was so clever the way he thought of it, you know? Um, because it just they played that da na 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 like before you see the shark, and then sometimes you don't see it,
Hmm.
sometimes you do, and it's that anticipation that
Well, a lot of that goes to the shark was malfunctioning.
yeah, it's a happy accident.
You know, the salt water just gave the
Yeah.
mechanical aspect of it fits. So they just went with the less is more approach, and it works.
Well,
Like
Richard
it's
Dreyfuss says that when he was on set, like, I mean, almost as much as he would breathe, he'd hear sharks down, you know, sharks malfunctioning. Every day he heard that, you
man, that's a
know.
nice steel book.
Yeah, so I was gonna show that as well. Yeah. So I
Is this
had picked it.
4K?
Yeah, it's a 4K
How did
copy.
it look? Because I don't have the 4K, I just have the Blu-ray.
So with the 4K, I mean, it was filmed in the 70s, so some of the dark stuff, like in the boat, is a little grainy. You know, whenever they're in,
Well, 4K doesn't necessarily mean less grain, but
well, there's like a little bit of noise, but where it shines is the outdoor scenes. Like when
we're
the
gonna have to sample it after a while, after we
yeah,
finish all this.
it looks good like all the outdoor scenes, right? Like when they're with the shark towards the end, like the blowing up, um, all those kind of scenes on the boat look really pop really well on the
Yeah,
4K.
I didn't
So
upgrade because I had this, but might
yeah,
might change my mind if I put that in there and I'm blown away.
I upgraded because I had a DVD copy.
Oh
If
yeah,
I'd had a Blu-ray, I'd probably
probably
stay,
wouldn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the 4K, I went ahead and went with that. Um, and oh, kind of like we were saying about the city, it feels like a real city, especially that opening shot with Brody when he's walking through. You get a sense and a feel of the town.
Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
That's where it is. That's where they
Yeah,
filmed
that's
it.
where they filmed. Yeah. So like him going in and out of the shops, like all that adds to it because then you start to like care a little bit more than if it was just death, death, death. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Without building all that up.
I've actually gone on Google Earth in Martha's Vineyard and
Oh, really?
yeah, and looked around and all that
Is
good
some of
stuff.
that stuff
Oh
still?
yeah, it's there. A lot of it still
Dang,
looks
that's
like that.
cool.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure it's a touristy thing too.
So now there is a couple of things that I didn't understand in the movie that I caught in this viewing.
Hmm.
When Richard Dreyfuss kept calling it a night feeder, but yet every time it attacked somebody, it killed them during the day, except for that fisherman that they found in his boat.
Okay.
But everybody else
Yeah,
gets eaten during the day, but he
you're
calls
right.
it a night feeder. So they went looking for it at night with the sonar. Like I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I
Was he
mean,
just wrong in assuming it was a night feeder?
I don't, the only thing I can think of is maybe that was in some of his research that they primarily feed at night. But I always thought the reason they're doing it at night is because the town officials don't want them doing it and they don't want people knowing what's going on. So the only way to hunt it is at night without a lot of people knowing.
Right. And I get
I get
that, but
that
he
angle.
specifically calls it a
Yeah,
night feeder.
I'm
So
not sure
I
about
don't
that.
know what that was. I don't know if that was a mistake or
He just
what.
cut that
But
line doesn't even need to be in there, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, I don't know
because
why it didn't get cut, but
yeah,
whatever.
because I like the idea of them searching for it at night because they're kind of doing it, you know, on the down low. Like they
Mhm.
can't have a lot of people knowing. Um, and oh, and you mentioned when they jump down and they see the body in the boat
Uh-huh.
of the other guy. I knew that scene was, I know that scene's coming and I still
It's
jumped at
still
it. Because when I was watching it, I was a little tired, just kind of, and then I knew it was coming, but I always jump at that
and
spot for some reason.
I only laughed at one scene, one line, and it was meant to be funny.
Hmm.
Is whenever they first see the shark and all of this stuff, and Richard Dreyfuss is telling Brody, get go in the foreground. I need it for scale, and he goes, foreground my ass. That that made me laugh.
Okay, and something else, thank you for bringing that up. Something else Spielberg does is he he offsets the tension, right? So it's like funny, 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 and then bam, you're hit with something intense,
Yeah.
and it's more effective. Like my favorite, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, if not my favorite scene, is when he's throwing the blood out of the boat.
The chum, yeah.
Yes, he's throwing it out, and they're joking about something. I wrote it down. They're joking about something, um, and they're just kind of chit-chatting, and then all of a sudden you get a glimpse of the shark, and he just, I mean, the look on his face.
And he just slowly backs up and says,
Yeah,
"You're gonna need a
you're
bigger
gonna need a
boat."
bigger boat, and
Yeah,
then he
great,
gets
great
their
line.
attention. That scene is great. And what's cool is when I was in college, I worked at Hollywood Video, and they went through this series where we played like all these old movie trailers,
Hmm.
and this was one of them. So this the old narration and the old school movie quality of the trailers they do, like Richard Dreyfuss. This is Jaw. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
that old narration's always in my head, and that scene sticks out for me though when he's throwing, like you said, the chum out.
yeah. And I think that's all the notes I really had. Oh,
Hmm.
it's pretty awesome that back then Temple of Doom, of course, was a few years later, but
Hmm.
um, Spielberg was he wasn't afraid to kill people. And when the little boy, Alex, what's his name? Alex, whatever, the boy with a mom that
Oh,
slaps
the mom's not.
Shirley, all that
Yeah,
good stuff. That's a great scene, by the
that is a
way.
good scene. I
Um,
just wrote kid killed awful.
yeah, I mean, that's your boy wasn't afraid to kill kids back then.
Yeah, I mean that was because the girl partying, like, oh, that was unfortunate, but you can kind of see that happening, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of sets it off, and you expect something in the beginning, but then when the kid, yeah, that was bad, especially then because you know that they know there's a shark out there, but they're going through with everything anyway. That's what's messed up.
Hmm.
In the beginning, you kind of don't really blame anybody for the girl because they didn't know.
Right.
But now they know something's out there and a kid gets eaten. And what's even worse, and this is something I like as well, they some guys find a shark and the mayor and all the people on top, they want to believe that's the shark. So like, no, that's it, that's it.
Even though deep down they know it's not.
That's so messed up.
But
And
once again, politics,
it's,
man,
yeah,
and money.
like I'm
But it wasn't
sure.
until what? Another person gets killed
Uh-huh.
and the mayor's son was playing in the water. Then all of a sudden, okay,
Right.
well, we need to shut it down.
Well, then even then he's like, oh, we even found the tooth, and he's like, what, do you have it? And they're like, no. He's constantly
Oh, yeah.
looking for a way out to
And that was
justify his
before.
stance.
That was before. But
Yeah.
after, whenever his son was in the water,
Oh, when he says my
that's
boy's
when
in the water too.
he was trying to rationalize
You're
to
right.
himself all of his decisions that he had been making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could see the difficult situation, but yeah, that's crazy right there for sure. Because like, there's situations like you said out there in real life where oh, it's might be this guy, but they don't really know, and yeah.
Yeah, and then of course they kill the shark with the oxygen tank, all that good stuff.
That's great. And I love how, um, I didn't realize, like when I was a kid watching it, all that exciting stuff, like with the cage and with the them blowing up throwing the tank in there, blowing it up, that's really just like the last, like,
5 minutes, 5 10 minutes of
yeah.
the movie. Yeah.
Like even the cage thing, I always thought the cage thing happens earlier, but that's all like the last 10 minutes.
Oh, now did you think when Quint was pushing the engine and Dreyfus was telling him, don't, well, Hooper, I think his name is, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, Hooper. He was telling him to slow down, don't,
Oh,
because
when
he
it was
can't take it, but
smoking?
he just kept revving it higher.
Uh-huh.
I think, I'm just asking you what you think, but I think it was one of those things where he was starting to go a little crazy because the shark was defying everything that should have happened. Like he was acting like great, like a shark shouldn't act. Remember him
Yeah.
and they were asking Hooper, like, have you ever seen this? And he's like, no. Even Quint had
Yeah.
never seen anything like that. So it's almost like he was going a little crazy
He was,
for a
and
second, and then after the engine blows and everything, but then he kind of catches himself and he starts being nicer to Hooper. He's like, okay, what can you do with this?
yeah, he starts to kind of backpedal a little
Yeah,
bit. And what's his name again in the real actor's name? Do you remember?
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw. Yeah, the wise old sage, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that you brought that up because this is Spielberg early in his career. Um, when he goes up against that shark, I almost feel like he like wants to go out that way if he has to. Like he cares more about killing that shark than surviving at that point.
At
I
that
feel.
point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Until the rubber meets the road and he's about to fall in his mouth.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he just kind of lost it a little bit. Like he was,
Yeah.
it's almost like he lost a little bit of control because he realized that they were running out of options.
Mm-hmm.
All these other things should have worked. The shark should
Right.
have gotten tired, especially with three barrels,
Yeah.
and he wasn't. So I'm guessing he was just going a little cuckoo,
Yeah, he
and he
was.
ended up blowing the engine on the damn boat.
Yes, and and like I said, this is Spielberg too, and The Lost World. I see some similarities with him and the hunter in The Lost World, the one that hunts the
Oh
T-Rex.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Spielberg's behind both, so because that he's kind of like that, like that's like his white whale that he has to, So I can kind of see similarities with both of those in there. One minor nitpick, it's a very abrupt ending, right? Like I mean, I'm an English guy, so there's a rising action, there's a climax, right? There's a falling action because they kind of chit chat as they're going off, but there's not really these guys saved us, the
Yeah.
town is restored. Like it ends,
It probably just comes to a runtime editing
and they were
issue.
over.
I think it was right at 2 hours, huh? I can't see. I'm
I
getting
think it's a
almost
little under 2 hours. But that's I mean, like I said, this movie is really well made, especially for the time.
2 hours and 4 minutes.
Oh,
So
so it is a little longer than I thought.
1975 is
Yeah,
like, a little long in the tooth, no pun
yeah.
intended. Um, so they probably said, let's just
Yeah, I mean, I
shut
could have
down.
dealt with like maybe one more scene, but yeah, you're right. It's and also this went way over. It was supposed to be like a 60-day shoot, and Dreyfuss said they shot for like almost a year.
A year?
Almost a year. I'm sure he's exaggerating it by a couple months, but it went way over schedule because there's videos of Spielberg saying, we're a day 100 and whatever, and it was supposed to be 60 days. So they felt it. They said the approach. It almost felt like they were shooting a independent movie, but like with a Hollywood budget, because they were doing so much that had never been done before, and they were filming in the ocean. That's another thing.
Yeah, they're like,
They're not on a sound
don't ever
stage.
film it in the ocean again.
Yeah.
They all kind of came to that
But
consensus
they
where they're like,
actually filmed it in the ocean. In those end scenes on the boat, it looks like it. Like, if it's on a tank or a soundstage, they're real close in, to hide that it's not really out. They're like they have the camera and there's nothing out there. I like that.
but then when they James Cameron filmed The Abyss, they did it in a big tank, and a couple of them almost drowned in that. So,
Yeah.
cool. Well, that's I think that's all we got for Jaws. We'll
Yeah.
we'll kind of wrap that one up.
Happy
What have
4th of
you?
July.
Yeah, what Happy Fourth of July? But we're not done. We're not done yet. I hear you watched something in the Spielberg
Oh, in the
realm.
Spielberg stratosphere?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what was it?
So I did see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Wah, wah.
And if you've been following us, you know that we've walked through very in depth, maybe even a little too in depth at times. But we went through all four movies, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, in my personal ranking, I kind of went in order. I liked Raiders the best, then Temple, then Crusade, then down there at the bottom, Kingdom of Crystal Skull, right?
Ugh.
That was mine. Yours was a little bit different, but you still had Crystal Skull at the end.
Yeah, mine was 3, 2, 1, 4.
Okay, yeah. And a lot of people like Last Crusade too. Like Last Crusade and Raiders are kind of the two that
Yeah, that's
you
usually the
either
two
one or the other.
favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, like you said, I'm a glass half full type of guy, right? I I go into it, like trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, trying to see. This one's directed by James Mangold, who did
Logan.
Logan, and he's done a couple of other
Yeah,
things.
he's done a lot.
hmm Yeah, he's
Just
done way more
Logan's
than just
probably
a
one of
couple.
the
That's one of the
more
bigger recent
recent. Yeah.
ones. But he's done a lot, and I'll say this right off the bat, I think it's considerably better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I hear it is, well, I hear the last half
hmm
is much better.
Okay.
Um, I'm hearing that it's kind of at first, and the middle's like but then like the last 15, 20 minutes, everybody says is really good.
So yeah, minor spoilers. I'm not going to go in depth, but I am going to mention some minor general things. Um, so what I like about the movie is, first of all, I like the title, Dial of Destiny. I like the alliteration. I think it's a cool title. It's way better than Kingdom of the Crystal like it rattles off the tongue a lot better. And um the opening scene, there's like a 25-minute, it might even be 30 minutes. There's a 25-minute scene at the beginning where it's, and you've, if you've seen the trailers, you've seen some of this. It's a de-aged Harrison Ford
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
takes place most likely sometime after Raiders because he's dealing with the Nazis. And the de-aging, is it perfect? No. I think Luke looked better in Book of Boba Fett with the deep fake. I think deep fake looks better. The de-aging thing's a little different. That's what they do in some of the Marvel movies and stuff.
Right.
It's not great. Like there's some time you could tell it's not really him. When he's still, it looks better, but when he's kind of moving around, it looks a little funny. But regardless, putting that aside, I love the opening. I think I like that opening. It's one of my favorite openings for an Indiana Jones movie. It he's after a
That's a bold
relic.
statement.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying the opening. I'm saying the opening. He goes after something that I mentioned in our Raiders review that they had not done yet. Like he goes after a certain biblical relic, and he's dealing with the Nazis, and there's situations where he's dressed as one, he's kind of flying by the seat of his pants, and it's very, that 25-minute scene is very reminiscent of the older movies, particularly Raiders and Last Crusade. Um,
I
and I
hear
like
that,
that.
but I heard the problem with the or one of the bigger problems with the de-aging
Hmm.
is he still sounds like 81-year-old Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
Like the voice, because he sounds considerably different than he did when he was a young man.
true.
So I'm just hearing this kind of distracting because they didn't. I know for Luke, they de-aged Mark Hamill's voice.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure why they didn't do that here, or they just didn't do as good a job with it.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's just what I'm hearing.
I can see that. I'd say that's more minor though because he doesn't talk much in the opening. It's very action driven. And like, I like the action in it. And the villain is I think it's Mance Mikkelsen. He was the scientist in Rogue One that made the um he's the one that
Oh yeah, yeah,
created
yeah.
the
He was
Death Star.
Jen's dad,
Yes.
Jen Erso's dad,
He's the villain in this.
Galen Erso.
I mean, give me this villain all day over the villain we got in
He just
Indiana
looks like a
Jones.
villain. His
He
face.
does. He's more reminiscent of the villain in Raiders than Bugs Bunny, which we got in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, right? So the villain's much better, and
The aliens that just flew away.
well, but even Kate Blanchett, she's,
Oh God.
it was so cartoony. But anyway, the villain here, he's really good. What's cool is there's some real life application because they don't call it Operation Paperclip, but when the Americans took out, the Nazis in World War II, they didn't tell the public this at the time, but they brought a lot of Nazis back, and they're the ones that helped create NASA,
Hmm. Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
the
I've heard
space
that. Yeah,
program.
yeah.
They talk about that in the movie, like he's one of those people, and I thought that was interesting because that's kind of a real world thing. It's mentioned there, and then the MacGuffin or the thing they're after is the Dial of Destiny. Um, it's Archimedes, Archimedes,
Archimedes.
yeah, Archimedes. He made it, and he was like a famous sign, of that time of like 214 BC, and it pulls heavily from the Battle of what's the name of that battle? The Siege of Syracuse, where they used those mirrors to defeat the Romans because like the sunlight would hit the mirrors and supposedly,
I've never heard of that.
yeah, you know how like if you put a magnifying glass with the
Yeah,
sunlight, it kind
yeah.
of burns. They basically supposedly did that on a big scale. We don't know if it's exaggerated or not, but that's something historical. And they talk a little bit about that. They deal a little bit with that. So just by the way I'm saying it, like it's more interesting than the last one we got. It's not as good as the original trilogy, but it's worth checking out. I had fun with it. Um, some people, his goddaughter's in it. She's a little annoying at times, but she is supposed to be annoying. She's a jerk.
Ah,
She's a jerk in
I
it.
still don't know if I'm gonna watch it.
It's worth checking out. I would say it's
Uh,
worth checking out. Um, So that and it's not doing too well box office wise, but I try not to base my opinion on that because, you know, I liked it. I had fun with it. Was it Raiders? No. But was it Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? No. So,
Well, that's something.
yeah. So, I mean, okay, I'll tell you this. I like this ending. Supposedly this is the last one we'll get. I don't really believe that. They'll do something at some point, but um I like ending off on this one better than before.
Well, there you have that. So I watched 12 Angry Men
Okay.
because Nick suggested it in our video. I had never seen it, and
Uh-huh.
I suggest you watch it. It is, I completely agree with him where he says it's an important movie.
Okay.
It should be shown in civics. There's no doubt. When you start talking about your civic duties as an
Uh-huh.
American and how jury duty is one of them and all that good
Right.
stuff, um, it really is fascinating how that movie, I think it was what, 57,
I think that's what he
1957?
said. Yeah.
And he was right, man. It's just the same types of issues going how our system is designed, going through evidence and witness accounts, and it really is fascinating.
Okay.
It kind of like I brought it up. I've heard in criminal justice classes where the teacher will be teaching, and then they'll have somebody come in the classroom,
Uh-huh.
put something on the desk, and then walk out. And then
Okay.
he'll look at the class and says, "Okay, everybody, write down what you just saw."
That's cool.
And then everybody will like write something different.
That's interesting.
So how dependable are eyewitness accounts?
Right.
As a police officer for so long, I can tell you it's one of the worst forms of evidence you can have. It can be the best, but most of the time it's the worst because of that particular, oh, he
Right.
was wearing a red shirt and come to find out he's wearing a green shirt. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy how things happen, but the
It's
movie is
interesting.
fascinating and it takes place in the room where they're debating and just through them talking about it, you know everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how much they discuss the case. You
Wow.
don't even get in the courtroom and hear anything. It's only the jurors deliberating. It's
Wow.
really neat. It's a good movie.
I was at when he was talking about it, it sounded very interesting. I definitely need to check it out.
Yeah,
What is it on? Do you have the DVD or did you
he let me
find
borrow
it?
it. It's right there.
Okay,
He
that's
let me
interesting.
borrow it. But it's playing on. It was streaming somewhere for free.
Okay, I'll check it
I
out.
want to say like Tubi or something like that.
Okay.
You can just stream it for free. It might have commercials, but
Right.
you could definitely watch it for free. So,
Well, that's good.
anything else on that you want to mention before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so a couple of other things. I saw The Flash, um, and that was
All
basically
I need to know is, was Michael Keaton awesome?
Michael Keaton was awesome in it.
Okay, well then that's all I
It
need to
was
know.
awesome.
Because I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, minor spoilers, but I mean at this point it's been out for a few weeks. Um, Michael Keaton is good in it. Ezra Miller is good in it. I know there's a lot surrounding him right now, but as far as what he did in the film, I like it. There's there's some jokes in there that I don't want to discuss now because you'll get a kick out of them when you see them, just based on things we've discussed in the past. But it's a fun movie. Um, is it The Dark Knight? No. I really like Man of Steel. It's not on that level, but it's fun. If you know a lot of DC, there's several cameos in it, and if you're a real DC head, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's that from this. But if you don't know that, it's still a fun ride. There's time travel in it. I think it's kind of obvious from the trailers. But I found it to be fun. It's a fun movie. Definitely a popcorn movie. Is there problems in it? Yes. I don't really want to go too much into it, but um, it's a fun film. If you liked Man of Steel, there's a lot of references to Man of Steel.
I like Man of Steel. That's actually one of the few, probably, yeah, one of the few Superman movies I like.
Yeah, Man of Steel was really well made. I really that's one of my favorites for
I
sure.
mean, I could have done with 15 minutes trimmed off the end.
Yeah, but it had been so long since we saw that it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it was all right.
Because if you think about it, the Christopher Reeves movies were good for the time, but they didn't have that level of action in it. And then the Brandon Routh movie didn't have it either because they were trying to just
You
do
can
more
meet him
Christopher
if you
Reeve.
want to come to GeekCon in Shreveport in next month in August.
Oh
He's
yeah,
going to be there.
that's pretty cool. Um, he kind of I think he kind of sometimes gets a little forgotten. You know, he was a decent one, but anyway, the Henry Cavill, I I love him and what he did with it. But anyway, it's fun. There's a lot of cameos in it. Ben Affleck's in it, Keaton's in it, other people are in it. It was a fun ride for the summer. And I saw Guardians 3 before that. I know you're not a huge Marvel guy, but that was
I like the
James.
one and two.
Okay. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that was James Gunn's like last Marvel movie because now he's on DC as the head of DC, and it's a good wrap up for the characters. It's definitely worth checking out. It's very Rocket focused. You know, you learn more about his origin, why he's so cranky, why he's the way he is, and why he cares so much about, Quill and the other people. There's comedy in it. The music track is great as always.
hmm
There's a lot of 70s music in there that's really good, and it's a good ending. Um, it's pretty solid. I'd say it's pretty solid. And um, other things, I want to see The Sound of Freedom. Have you heard about that?
I just hear that it's killing
It's
Dial of Destiny.
It's yes, it made like 11 or 12 million in pre-sales, which I love talking blockbusters and comic books and all this fun stuff, but that one is going to be something that's not just entertainment. It's something important that everyone should see. Um, I'm kind of annoyed that like I follow probably 15 or 20 movie reviewers on YouTube.
hmm
One has covered it. So I don't like that. I feel like give it a fair shot, check it out. We should all be against child trafficking.
Right.
Um, so I'm gonna see that on Sunday, so I can let you know
Yeah,
what I
I'm
think
kind of
about it then.
interested in it. I'm gonna look a little more into it. I haven't
Yeah,
seen any trailers, but just hearing about it, I do
yeah.
want to look into it.
I feel like it's gonna be one of those series movies that you just need to see,
Yeah.
akin to Schindler's List, Passion of the Christ, stuff like that. That's just it's weighty, but it's something that is appropriate to see.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this half of the video. We we're gonna continue recording and we're gonna talk about some other stuff, but until then, we'll see y'all in a week. Later.